Good morning. Good morning. Although arguably it's not a good morning because the passing of Steve Jobs has definitely left a large hole in the universe. And I worked for him from 1983 to 1987, and then from 1995 to 1997 I worked for Apple again. And just as he came back towards the end of 1997, so we overlapped again. So arguably I'm one of the few people in the world who've worked for Steve Jobs twice. But because of Steve's death yesterday, this morning I wrote a completely new speech. And so you're not going to see what's on the agenda. I have a speech that's sort of dedicated to what I learned from Steve Jobs, and I think the lessons of Steve Jobs that you can apply to your startups. Because fundamentally, Steve was, arguably the world's greatest CEO, the world's greatest entrepreneur. I don't think anybody did any more for his customers or shareholders or employees than Steve Jobs. Truly, no one has done more. So I have compiled the top 12 lessons that I learned and that I think all of you can apply to your companies. And so I have 12 key points. The two key points are they suck and they go long. And that's a bad combination. If you suck and you're short, it's okay. And if you're good and you go long, it's okay. But if you suck and go long, it's like being stupid and arrogant. It's a bad combination. So these are my lessons that I learned from Steve Jobs. And I think that you can apply as entrepreneurs. So lesson number 1. Experts are clueless. If you start listening to these so-called experts, the A-listers, the journalists, the analysts, they cannot help you as entrepreneurs. They're going to tell you to do better sameness, to do what everybody else thinks is right. They're going to tell you what their concept is, often from a very arrogant point of view. Usually they're disconnected from customers. I cannot tell you, Steve Jobs did not listen to experts. Quite the contrary. Experts listened to him. Experts are clueless, especially people who declare themselves experts. That's the person to avoid. Second thing, pretty much customers cannot tell you what they need. And so you can ask customers about how to evolve something that you've already shipped, how to make a revolution better. But I don't think you can ask a customer how to create a revolution. Third thing, and so rather than trying to break things down into bite-sized, small little things, I think you should give your employees and your co-founders magnificent challenges, just huge challenges, because that's truly why and how you get the best work out of people. And so if you provide your employees with this challenge, a big challenge, they will rise up and do the best work of their career. So big challenges is what you should present. Next thing I learned is that design counts. In a world where everybody's talking about price, lots of people care about design. Lots of people do. And this is something that's probably contrary to what most experts will tell you. Most experts will tell you there's a price point and people are price sensitive, and there's this curve of demand. And I think to a great degree Apple has disproved that. So you should care about design. Don't put out crap. Next thing I learned is that in your presentations, it's a very simple algorithm. Use big graphics and big font. It's probably contrary to most of your PowerPoint pitches. You're using 8, 10, or 12, right? And you're going to read your slide. And you're going to put up a competitive matrix. And there's going to be your column and your competitor's column. And guess what? Your column is going to be completely checked off. And your competitor's column is going to be full of holes. And that's going to be in an 8-point font. And no one puts up slides that have one word. He has slides that, his minimum font size seems to be about 60 points. How many of you have slides with 60-point minimum font? Big graphics, big font. If you go look at the archives of Steve Jobs' keynotes. Big graphics, big font. Next thing I learned is that if you truly want to be an entrepreneur and an innovator, you have to jump curves. You don't do things 10% better. You do things 10 times better. I'll give you some classic examples of curve jumping. First, we'll start with a historical one. There used to be an ice harvesting business. In the ice harvesting business in the 1900s, this meant that Bubba and Junior would go to a frozen lake or a frozen pond in the winter and cut blocks of ice. And in 1900, 9 million pounds of ice was harvested in the United States. 33 years later was the beginning of the ice factory curve. The ice factory curve now meant that you didn't have to be in the winter. You didn't have to live in a cold city. You could freeze water centrally any time of year, and then the ice man would deliver ice to your house. So imagine the advantage of going from ice harvester, cold city, cold time of year, to ice factory, any city, any time of year. Fast forward another 20 years, now we have the refrigerator curve. This is ice 3.0. Ice 3.0 meant that you had your personal ice factory. You didn't go to a centralized ice factory, or the centralized ice factory didn't deliver ice to you. You had your own ice factory. You had a PC, if you will, a personal chiller. And so if you look at this, the great values, the great innovation occurred because people went from one curve to the next curve. Actually, I said that incorrectly. Very few people went from ice harvester to ice factory to refrigerator curve. Most people, they were ice harvesters. They defined their business as ice harvesting. They died on it as the ice harvester. Then there were ice factory curves. People on the ice factory curves defined their business as we freeze water centrally and then we deliver it. Those people died as ice factories. They did not become refrigerator companies. And refrigerator companies are not looking at biotech. Jump curves. It's not about 10% better. It's about 10 times better. The real innovation happens on the next curve, not on the curve you're on. Next thing I learned is that all that really matters is something works or it doesn't work. Next thing is, I think what Steve has proven is that there are a class of person that cares about value, which is different than price. If you compete on price as an entrepreneur, it's a very, very difficult thing. On this matrix are uniqueness vertically and value horizontally. Okay? So in the upper right-hand corner, you are unique and valuable. That's where you want to be. Let's discuss the other three corners. Let's say you're at the bottom right corner. In the bottom right corner, this means that you are in fact valuable but not unique. In the valuable but not unique corner, you're going to have to compete on price. In the opposite corner, the upper left corner, in the upper left corner, you're unique but not valuable. In other words, you're just plain stupid. You have created a product that nobody cares about. The bottom left corner is where you're unique and not valuable. Excuse me, I said that wrong. The bottom right corner is where you're not valuable and you're not unique. So this would be a corner where you do something really stupid, and stupid people like me in the venture capital business has funded more competition to do the same stupid thing. That's the worst corner of all. You could make that case about, let's say, Pets.com. Hopefully you're old enough to remember Pets.com. So Pets.com, 10 or 15 years ago. The pitch was, we have patent-pending, curve-jumping, paradigm-shifting way to sell dog food online. The dog food business is fundamentally a supply chain management business. Dog food business. Let me explain it to you. On one side, we have a cow. On the other side, we have a dog. All we need to do is kill the cow, cut it into little pieces, put it in a can, get it to the dog. How hard could that be? So why was there a pet food store in the middle sucking up 25% of the margin? Revolutionary thought. Let's eliminate the pet food store in the middle, because nobody wants to drive to a pet food store, park at the pet food store, look at the pet food, pick up the pet food, and drive it to their house. Right? So let's eliminate that stupidity in the supply chain. That's our value. We make pet food much more convenient. The problem with that is that pet food is not so good online. For one thing, you may eliminate the pet food store, but then you have to add back shipping and handling. And then it's kind of inconvenient to buy pet food online because you have to be at home when UPS drops off the dead cows in the cans. So it's no more cheaper, and it's a pain in the ass because you have to be at home when the dead cows in the cans come to your house. So it's not that valuable. And then there was Pets.com, and so since there was Pets.com, then venture capitalists figured, well, we need our own Pets.com. So that's why there was iPets.com, ePets.com, LastMinutePets.com, DiscountPets.com. There's 16 ways to spend as much money for dog food online as at the pet food store and have the added inconvenience of having to be home when the pet food came to your house. If you're an engineer, you have to create a unique product or service. If you're a marketer, you have to convince the world that it is unique and valuable. It's that simple. I'll give you some examples of products that are in that corner for me. I love to go to movies. I have 4 kids. We love to take our kids to the movies. One thing you'll learn taking kids to the movies, it is a pain in the ass to get 4 kids to the movies. So you really want to know before you go that you have tickets. We live in Atherton. We go to Redwood City 20. Redwood City 20, you can buy tickets at home using Fandango. That's the only service that theater supports. Therefore, it's unique. If I want to buy tickets online and print them at home, I have to use Fandango. Unique. It's also valuable because now I know that I have a ticket before I get to the theater. I also skip the ticket buying line. I go straight into the theater. For me, that Fandango is unique and valuable. Next thing, Steve Jobs taught me that A players hire A players. B players hire C players. When you hire a C player, guess what a C player hires? A D player. Guess what a D player hires? An E player. This is called the bozo explosion. Okay? You need to fight the bozo explosion. Right now, you're all small companies. You're thinking you're hiring A players. The moment you lower your standards and hire a B player is when the bozo explosion starts. You hire a B player, the B player is going to say, I have to hire people who are not as good as me because they would show me up. They would be better than me. They might rise above me. So B players hire C players. And then the C players get in a position of hiring. Guess who they hire? The D players. And you wake up one day and you will be freaking surrounded by bozos. That is a bad thing. Next thing is, real CEOs can demo. Seriously. Real CEOs can demo. Next thing. Real entrepreneurs ship, not slip. They ship. You know, my theory is taken off from Bobby McFerrin. Bobby McFerrin had a great song, Don't Worry, Be Happy. Real entrepreneurs, don't worry, be crappy. Which is when you have jumped curves, when you've gone from ice harvesting to ice factory to refrigerator company, when you've gone from daisy wheel printer to laser printer, the first version of the laser printer can have elements of crappiness to it. Right? The first laser printer from Apple was $7,000. Slow Apple Talk network, single-sided, no envelopes, 8.5 by 11 only. Right? Piece of crap. But it was a revolutionary piece of crap. If we had waited for the perfect world of double-sided, envelope feeding, multiple, megabytes of RAM, faster network, we would have never shipped. So as an entrepreneur, you have to understand that you need to ship. You need to ship. Don't worry, be crappy. I am not saying ship a piece of crap. I'm saying ship something that's jumped curves that has elements of crappiness to it. The last thing I learned from Steve Jobs is some things need to be believed to be seen. Most of the time you hear this in the opposite way, which is some things need to be seen to be believed. Not for an entrepreneur. This is how it works for an entrepreneur. You have to believe in your product, you have to ship your product, and then people will see it, and you will see it. And if you don't believe, it'll never happen. If you wait for proof, it will never happen. If you wait for customer validation, it will never happen. You have to believe. The reason why Macintosh was successful is that at the core, 100 people, starting with Steve Jobs, believed in Macintosh. And because we believed in Macintosh, we made it real, which is very different than if Macintosh was real, then we would believe it. If that were the case, Macintosh would never have succeeded. You have to believe in some things if you want to see some things.